Welcome to the channel, Luke. I ran across him through Paul Salter, the hypnotherapist, golfing hypnotherapist. I'm trying to remember what he is.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah. So
Mindset coach, hypnotherapist extraordinaire, uh, you name it.
he had actually hooked us up and wanted to get kind of some information on you and get you to talk a little bit about, like where you were at. Because right now I'm at a 7.3, and obviously I want to get down this coming year. My goal is to get down to like a 2 or a 1. And
Mhm.
I know that I'm trying to remember Paul's interview with you. I think it was episode number 5, and
Really?
he's farther down now. So
Yeah.
obviously he's catching momentum, but um, I think you were like within a year, you went from kind of where I'm at down to very, very low. And I just wanted to kind of talk about, what it was that helped you drop so much. But first off, tell me about you. Tell me about how you got into golf and kind of how you are back here. I don't know if you ever left it, but what's your story,
Yeah.
man?
Yeah, I mean, golf was kind of one of those happen circumstances. I was a young kid and I played basketball and soccer growing up. And then I was coming home from school one day and I saw a set of golf clubs in my neighbor's trash. And I was like, huh. So ran over and grabbed them. And it was a set of women's McGregor blades, irons with real wooden woods. And it was in this like goofy little cart thing that wasn't even a golf bag. Like they slid down. It was so hokey pokey. And my grandpa was a pretty cool dude, and I said, "Hey, Papa, I want to go hit some golf balls." So he took me up to the driving range one time. We hit some golf balls. The lady next to us was like, "You've got a pretty natural swing. Here, try this Big Bertha driver." And I hit that thing like I don't know, maybe 200 yards. And so I thought, "Hey, this is fun. I like this." And then the next year, I was going into the seventh grade, and I tried out for the school golf team and played for the next 2 years on the school golf team. Managed to just go out and first time on a golf course, I shot a 99, broke 100 to make the team. So I was like, cool. And then it fell off into my high school years and into my college years, and then got back into my professional kind of world, so to speak. I think I was 24 or 25 and picked the game back up and, forgot how much fun it was. And I should add, prior to picking it back up at 25, I'd become a state level competitor racquetball player. And if you analyze the racquetball swing, it's a forward and backwards fast twitch, muscle memory and swing motion that is very similar to a golf swing in terms of, getting hinged and moving the hips through and all that good stuff. So what I didn't realize until later, as a result of that, that's where my power came from in the golf swing was being able to have that forward power as well as that backwards power. And then I just kind of hung around like a 12 handicap for many years because all I could do, and if you go back to that episode you're talking about, it was called Big Drive Energy. All I
Right.
could do is hit the ball a long ways. I had no impulse control. I had no fortitude around like touchy little chip shots or putts. I was just a mental midget on the golf course after the tee box. So fast forward to, I'm 37 years old now. I found Paul back at the beginning of the year. I had done the other things that help, narrow the margin of error, get fitted, get clubs extended, get them towed up the right amount of degrees. All those things help in terms of like going from like a 12 to a 10 to an 8. And then I met Paul and he unforked me mentally, so to
Yeah.
speak. And all the other potential that was there got unlocked as a result. And from March, when I met him, 2024, till now, I went from an 8 to a 1.2 with my career low happening just a few days ago or a few weeks ago on Black Friday, shooting a 65. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Wow. And okay, so you you made the comment that you had to extend your iron. So does that mean how like what are you like 6 something?
Yeah, I'm 6'3", about 230. And I always struggled with pushing things to the right, and I just thought that it was me, it was my issue. And I had never been fitted. And so when I actually went and got fitted, realized that, hey, I need like 120 gram shafts because of my swing speed to kind of slow things down. I need, the certain type of club head. So I went with the Callaway Apex Pros. I need a mid-size grip, and then I need my clubs extended an inch and towed up 2 degrees. Once I got all those things done, it was like, again, unlocking this potential that was there, not realizing that I had built two different swings, one for my driver and 3 wood and hybrid, and then a different swing for my irons because I was trying to make things happen because I was limited by my equipment.
Wow. Wow. And so after that point, that's where you got down to like kind of the 8 range.
Hmm. Yep.
And just out of curiosity, like how much were you working on the game? Were you just going out and golfing or were you practicing a little bit or
This is going to be an unpopular answer. I didn't practice at all to go from an 8 to a 1. Um,
I don't,
it was
this
all
I'm
mental.
sorry, this is over. We're not gonna
I
continue.
know. I knew as soon as I said it, you're gonna be
This,
like, "Are you
this
kidding
interview
me?"
is done. I just because I practice every freaking day and
I know. It's a terrible answer. But it's like if you were to look and analyze my rounds and where all my scoring mistakes were made, they were the wrong decision off the tee. They were, Paul has a episode about the anyway shot. I had so many anyway shots where I just wasn't comfortable, wasn't feeling it, but where I lost most of my strokes was standing over putts, and it was because I didn't operate with a sense of intentionality or a plan to execute. So I would just stand over a putt and just hit it, not even like thinking it through. Like I'd look at it and then I would just hit it. And it was just such a poor mental approach to the game. And so, and I will say, I did get fitted for a new putter, and that was a transformational thing to actually be really confident that I know the tool I'm holding is correct for me, and then with that, I built a level of confidence to also execute a plan that Paul and I worked on in one of our hypnotherapy sessions, which is blade line putt, meaning like get so focused you're looking at a blade of grass and then trace from there back the line to the ball and then make your putt. And once I unlocked that as well as some like deeper stuff, like I was too emotionally attached to the result and what like my peers would say when I made the putt or whatever, that I was getting so anxious and tight. And so once I eradicated those negative thoughts that didn't need to be there, had the right tool, things started to come together. And I think at one point I went like 6 rounds without a three putt where I would typically have like 4 to 5 a round.
right? So I mean, how much did you change when you went, did you get like one of those fancy putter shafts and you changed did you stay with the same, like I went from a blade to, it's not really a mallet, but it's kind of got that, cutout. So it's,
Yeah,
like
like
whatever.
a
Did you
like a
change,
half moon.
yeah, did you change that or did you
Hmm.
just get fitted and it's like based on how upright it is and all that? Or like, what was that experience like?
Yeah, so my putter stroke, it struggled to be consistent. And so I would say the two things that were most helpful was I ended up going with the Jailbird, which has become really popular on tour. Something about those black and white vertical lines, when you look down, you can really easily see when you're not staying in like a perfect plane back and forth. So it just gives you really nice visual feedback. And then I went with a flat so putter grip, which is it's flat on the top. It's one of those jumbo grips, but it's flat on the top. And then I go with a 2/3 putter grip. So that was really helpful for me to be able to put my two thumbs side by side and on that flat side, and it just took a lot of noise out of my putter stroke, if you will. Um, and it allowed me to really just focus on like, moving those shoulders the way that you should through a putter stroke. And again, it's just like now I actually have a plan. Now I have a tool that I'm confident in, and I can make, good strokes with the putter. And then that was really transformational from, my misses being 6, 7 feet to like a lot of times they're just like inches, and you're tapping in for par or you're making those birdie putts.
So did you like was there any difference in how you approached like uh not maybe kind of along the lines of Scott Fawcett's idea where you're just pounding driver out there or would you like look at a hole and say okay this is the widest part of the fairway, the
Yeah.
the architect is wanting me to hit there. I mean, were you doing that prior when you were like an 8?
Nope.
But did,
Uh-uh.
so did you start doing that as well?
I did. That was something Paul helped me with was becoming more curious and becoming like more present and like living in the moment of every shot on every hole. So like on the way to a golf course, if I've never played the course before, I'm looking up, and thinking through the course and looking who designed it and like understanding each hole, like looking at the tee box and like you're talking about, like just analyzing it, starting to play golf like chess, like setting up my next move, so to speak, and like really thinking it through. So like a practical application of that, like on the course I play a lot, we've got a couple of par fours that play like 320 to 360, but they're not just straightaway holes. There's some dog legs. They've got, woods that, shorten the fairway at like 240. You've got this little neck that you've got to hit. And those are holes where I used to just step up and think to myself, because I can hit the ball about 330 off a tee if I really get after it. And I'm thinking to myself, hey, if I hit a really cool drive here, I'm on the green or I'm greenside chipping. Well, like 6 times out of 10, I'm hitting it straight or fanning it a little right into the woods, and now I'm hoping to find it or I'm taking a penalty stroke.
Right.
So those are holes where I would, like you said, look at the hole and go, okay, the fattest part of the fairway and the best angle to the green to avoid that greenside bunker on the left is to, hit it to the right side of the fairway about 210 yards. And then I've got an easy like wedge into the green, with this really nice angle and the bunker's not even in play. And once I started to play like that, like the game changed dramatically.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you're hanging out at an eight. You've got the right weapons, and you meet Paul. I mean, so when I was listening, I'm trying to remember if it was gosh, it was a podcast that I heard him talking about Paul, and then I listened to him. Was it the mental with Josh Nichols, the mental management or something podcast? So
Yeah.
I hear this and I'm like, okay, wonder what that's like. You first you think, you got a pocket watch and he's like doing
Yeah.
this, you're like sitting there.
I
Yeah,
start barking or something.
right. So
Yeah.
that was what my thoughts of hypnosis was going to be. But I mean, like going into meeting Paul, like what were your preconceptions, and then what did you actually experience with the hypnotherapy?
Yeah. So, I had reservations. I've been in, regular, like traditional type of, coaching counseling before, where, you sit down and you're face to face and you're trying to talk through and unpack, an issue or a trauma or whatever. Um, and that process has always felt really protracted. And so the way that I looked at it from just a speculative perspective was, maybe this will be an expedited route. Maybe we'll just get to the crux of the matter quicker. And that's exactly what happened. And so I didn't know how we were going to get there. I just wanted to do it in a more efficient way and I thought maybe hypnotherapy would be it. And so, yeah, I had the stopwatch or that idea in my head of the thing waving back and forth. But when I actually got down to it, it was like, hey, like let's just do a couple breathing exercises. Let's relax. Let's close our eyes. Let's let our body kind of just melt into the chair and get you into that theta wave state where you're able to just kind of access memories and get to answers very quickly without any sort of inhibition. And so for me, that was the kind of transformational experience was like Paul knew the right questions to ask. Like we developed a goal line before we even started. Like, what do you want out of this? And I'm like, I've got issues with impulse control, and I get way too anxious over like critical shots and putts. He's like, okay, let's figure that out. And so he had all the questions to ask, got me into a really calm, kind of open state. And then we just figured some stuff out really quick where all that anxious energy and negative emotion was coming from that was like right below the surface of consciousness that I didn't realize was like strongly uh, affecting all of my conscious decision making and my conscious feelings. And so that was my experience of hypnotherapy was getting to the root of a cause quickly and efficiently, unencumbered by any other thought. And then it was like as soon as you hit that, you're like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like this is 100% why I feel that way. And then out of that, you don't just live in that negative. Then you're like, okay, now we know what kind of a plan of action we need to create here that you can kind of use as your Bible going forward. When you experience that exact same feeling in the future, you know what to do.
Right. Yeah, I remember almost every session, like when he was like, okay, so you just got to let your mind go, and wherever it goes, that's where you're at, and you just go with it. And I'm like, okay, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, he's like got me back to when I was like 6 years or like 10 years old in the
Yep.
sixth grade, having a conversation with my dad about how I should have had a better year at school. I'm like,
Mm,
where did that even come from? And you start looking at your behaviors in life, and it's
yeah.
like all of that was from that moment.
Hmm.
It's the weirdest thing, and it's like I literally felt like this weight was on my chest when my I was done with that therapy session, and the next day it started to lift a little bit, but I mean, it is so weird, how and it wasn't even a traumatic event. It was my dad saying, I'm disappointed in you.
Yep.
Then all of a sudden, I shift my entire life and the way I run it to make him happy, and it's like that has impacted my life and my personality. And I mean, we're still kind of in the middle of stuff, but it is the weirdest experience because, like you, I have been through numerous I think I've talked about it before, but I'm finally, it took me three times getting married. But that's a whole other podcast. But
It plays a part though, you know. It's like those I would call them like untruths that somehow like the seed falls and then it grows and it puts roots down and then subsequent decision making or feeling comes from these sources that are just simply not true. And like for me, that was the biggest thing was to like I grew up, you know, really with like what I call performance based love. Like if you do really well, then you're going to get love and acceptance, but you got to produce a result. And so on a golf course, like it's all results driven. And so it was like I was too concerned about the end result that I couldn't stay present in the moment and actually execute. And you know, again, back to like the hypnotherapy, like you would never be able to sit still long enough on your own to figure that out. And
right.
that's where the magic comes in.
Yeah.
And and for me, I was again mental midget on the golf course. I was self impaired making these scores of 80 and 79 and 81 when the potential was there all along to dramatically reduce that margin. And here's what I really found the break free moment was once I started to mitigate those avoidable mistakes, you know, putting my driver away and teeing off with a 3 iron, looking at a shot and going, wait a second, the grain on this chip is growing into me. I'm going to put my 58-degree away. I'm going to pick up my 50. I'm going to put it back in my stance, and I'm just going to bump this thing onto the edge of the green and let it release. You know, just to give myself permission to think for 10 seconds longer and make the correct decision that narrows the margin of error the most. Those things put you so far ahead that now you're like in an attack mindset. Like I told you about that 65 where I, you know, got an eagle on the second hole. It's like all of a sudden you're shifting away from I need to avoid this mistake and you're looking at like how can I score? And that shift doesn't happen without uncovering what's keeping you from mitigating those mistakes, which has a lot to do with like that anyway shot and just not understanding where those nerves or anxiety is coming from.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting that, the anyway shot. I I have found myself over the putt already thinking about what was how will this impact my score when I make this or when I miss it?
Mm,
You're already like playing it out, and you've stopped focusing on the line or the putt, and you're literally just getting up and you're hitting the ball without pure intentional focus.
yep.
And how many times I mean, I do it mostly with putts. It's not even like with my iron shots. The freest shots are like when I'm laying up with an 8 iron and you
Hmm.
just free wheel it and you don't think about, okay, I got to make sure I keep this flat wrist. And
Yeah.
when you stop thinking about all that stuff,
Yep.
and that's where I'm hoping to get from this entire year is focused on mental, because I can sit here. I actually got a hole in one last night on putt,
Heck yeah.
right? Uh,
You need to send that to Bryson. Did you hit it over your house?
no. And my wife would not allow me to hit it over my house.
That's
So I
great.
preferred, happy wife, happy life.
Yep. Yep.
I can sit here in 21 shots. My shot dispersion is let's see how many 100% greens, right? So I
Yep.
hit it from 130. I hit it. You put me out even at the driving range or on a golf course. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
but it's it's because when I'm swinging, I may have a swing thought, but it's not like I'm like stuck in the swing thinking about, like what is my wrist doing? It is just I'm just here swinging because there is
Right.
like, and so it's like I can't even take that to the driving range right now because I don't know. It's so it's something mental and not
Hmm.
having that focused, deliberate, intention of hitting the ball and committing. And that's
Yeah.
what I'm really working on is like when you're standing back, you can think all you want, right? But
Hmm.
when you trigger to walk into the ball, you're not thinking about position, you're not thinking about swing key, nothing. And
Yep.
that's what I'm hoping to work on. And with the work that Paul has got me through, a lot of our work was more around, I'm not, my word for this year is intentionality, but
Mm.
it, one of our sessions took me back to when I was a Cub Scout. And my dad was this Cub Scout leader. And so I don't even remember when this goal happened, but I'm like, I'm going to get every badge possible.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I figured out exactly what I needed to do to get that, but I wouldn't go further. I would just, what is the bare minimum to make that goal happen? And
Yeah.
that is, it's translated into my life, into how it's like, am I working out every day? No, I wasn't working
Yeah.
out every day. Was I putting every day? Was I, like, obviously I'm not awesome like you are, Luke, and don't,
Oh, stop.
and all of a sudden I'm shooting 65. But I look back at this year and I'm like, if I would have just taken 15 minutes instead of doom scrolling Instagram and
Hmm.
just laid out the well putt mat and just work on putting. But at the same time, I'm like, maybe I take a page out of Luke's chapter and don't like focus and like get so obsessed with all of this work because the funny thing is my first season, if you look back at my tournament play, I shot
Hmm.
278s and an 86, but I won all three tournaments that I did that.
Hmm.
I haven't sniffed. I got a shot of 79 twice
Hmm.
since then. And I've got this. I
Yeah.
this. I've gotten fit. I've gotten everything.
Like you should be shooting 74s and 75s. Like you're doing all the things that should be, right? But it's
Right.
just not. And um, it's funny, you were just talking, it took me back in my mind to when this guy named Nick DeZenzel, he was the assistant pro at a local course. I think I was like just getting back into golf. I was maybe oh, 26, 27. And one day we were out there playing and he goes, "Hey, I'd like to ask you something." I go, "What?" He goes, "I want to play today with you." He's like, "But I want to choose every shot for you. And I want you to just do what I say." And I go, "Okay." And it was the lowest round I ever shot, 74.
Oh,
And it was because he could see that there was potential, but that I was just making all the wrong mistakes. I was making all the wrong choices. And I even go back to this past Sunday. I shot six over on the front. And I was like, what am I doing? Two double bogeys and two bogeys? Like, what in the world are you doing, Luke? And I hadn't played in like 3 weeks. I'd gone hunting and done some other things. So we get to the turn, and I was like, "Whoa, I am not present." I was like, "It's cold. I'm 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 making wrong decisions. I'm hitting driver where I shouldn't be." So like I just checked in with myself for a second. I'm like, "Okay, it's cold. You need to chill out and stick to your game plan." So I went into the back nine with that mental process, and I shot one under on the back. So for me, I look at that as an example of like two different sets of nine holes, one where I'm not present and I'm just letting my impulses rule my decision making, and another where I'm like, okay, I go back to the Phil Mickelson video where he's like, I know that when it's 8 o'clock in the morning and it's, 52 degrees, the ball's not going to go as far. So I'm going to swing a little easier. I'm going to take more club. Like he's just, in the moment and thinking it through. And so to what you're talking about, like the putting mat and the exercises and all these things, like when you're putting in that much effort, it's like the natural thing that any human would reasonably believe is like, I should expect a better result because I'm putting in all this work.
right.
But if somehow you're not like curious and present in every shot, making the right decisions, that is what gives you that level of confidence you're talking about, where you're able to just like be free like that 8 iron and just release through the ball and just let it happen and trust the result. But when there's that anxiety there going, you should do really good today. That's where the
Yeah.
negative stuff starts to happen. Um,
Yeah.
Man, I'd love to play around a golf with you just to like hang out and be like, all right, let's look at this shot. Okay, what's the danger zone here? And then it's like, you know what? It's 152 yards. What if you just swung a lazy 3/4 7 iron and just laid it up to that fat part of the green over there? Like those are the shots that are hard to commit to because they're not exciting because you're not going after the pin, but then just set you up for an easy two putt or potentially a buried birdie putt.
Yeah. I played through with a guy that he lives in Abilene and it's kind of related. But we went out and played, and he's like, let me from here on in, let me just I think it was after the second hole. He's like, let me shoot the distances and you tell me what club you want to hit and I'll tell you how to play it. And
Ah,
we started doing that. And going into the 14th hole, I'm two over.
oh
And
wow.
then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, so this is it. This is the day.
Yeah.
And
Just
double,
two birdies. That's all I need. Two
double,
birdies.
yeah, double and shoot 79. And
Ah.
it's like it's and I I know that he had to say like, okay, he shot it at, the distance is probably like 178. And normally I'd be like, okay, that I'm gonna step on a 7 iron. And
Mm-hmm.
I think he told me it was like 186. And he's like, what club would you hit? I think he was bumping up the distances.
Ah.
I would
Yeah.
like over club a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
He never confirmed nor denied what what he did, but that is I would love to play around where I had like that caddy, like you,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is what I want you to do. And so I'm not putting analysis because by trade I'm a computer analyst.
Okay.
So I'm highly analytical. I mean, it takes me 5 minutes to pick out candy, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking for the most bang for the buck. I'm looking for the right texture. I'm looking for, is it going to fill me up or am I going to, do I also need to get something to counterbalance how much sweet it? I mean,
Yeah.
that's me standing at 7-Eleven, right? Trying to pick out candy. It's like my brain, it's just like, it's not I'm going to grab a Snickers, you know?
Yeah. I think the clinical term for that is analysis paralysis, where it's
Yeah.
like the gut should get an opportunity to be involved in the decision making, but it doesn't because and it's a superpower. Like the analytical capability is a superpower, but in those moments, it's an Achilles heel, so to speak. Um, and and so it can be tough if I'm putting myself in your mind. It can be tough to be on a golf course, be looking at a shot, and actually settle in with 100% certainty on this is the club I'm hitting, this is why I'm hitting it, and this is where I'm hitting it. And then out of that super confident decision, your body's able to just kind of be free. But if you're like, it's 186. I mean, it could be a smooth six. Maybe and then like you kind of go in with like 86% certainty,
Right.
and then your body's only able to produce according to the level of, you know, uh, resolve that you've arrived at. Also, let's run out like a scenario. So you've got a par four. Let's say there is a greenside bunker positioned front left. Pin is front right, and it's 176.
To the pin.
What's to the pin? 176. Pin is front right. There's a bunker front left, and you're 176 out. What's your stock 176 shot? What club?
Well, the question would be what's center?
Let's say center is 190.
Oh, wow. I'm not toying around with 176. I'm going to hit my 6 iron, which is kind of like my 188 club.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and if I step on it accidentally, it's going to get me further, but um, it would be just a confident, easy 6 iron. Normally, I would say that's my 7 iron. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
7 iron is on the screws on the like you nail it. It is 176 for sure.
Okay.
But
Okay.
you have to take into account if I get after it and I get a little too much, then I'm going to draw it, which is going to put me in that left bunker.
Right.
If I hit it a little lazy, then it puts me short right versus just a smooth, easy 6 iron, and I have a comeback putt.
Right. Right.
That's kind of what you know, that's where I'm trying to get my mind at now because I started using the Z82 Garmin rangefinder,
Hmm.
and it does front, middle, back.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to always think middle now, but I played an entire round in a tournament, my last tournament, doing, I'm going for the middle. 40% of my shots were short, none were long. First time ever I have not had a long shot. Normally it is like, it's like 8% on both sides and 25% short, 15% long. And
Right.
so I'm like, okay, I always went for the center, but I'm so obviously I'm hitting everything short.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, when you hit it on the screws, you can't, that's not the shot that you need to plan on.
Right. Yeah. I like to plan on like with my irons, I'm always swinging like 75, 80%. And that's my stock yardages. So I know I've got a little bit more I can push on if I need to, like a little bit of headwind or a little bit uphill. But that scenario that you played out, the 176 front right pin, 190 middle, fast forward, 6 months when you've worked with Paul and gotten like dialed back the analytical and dialed up the gut, it's going to be like, hey, so it's 176 front right, 190 middle, and your answer is going to be within seconds. Yeah, smooth six.
Yeah.
Smooth six middle. And you talk to like the pros, and they're always going for the middle of greens. And that is the difference maker. You're eliminating like there's few times where you can really go after a pin unless it's position middle and really like no danger on the front side. And this holds true with like a lot of par fives where I used to really screw up because I was always trying to get there in two because I can hit the ball a long ways versus being like, you know what? If I lay up here to the right side of this fairway and I've got a straight line to the pin, eliminate any sort of like trouble on either side, and I leave myself a 120 yard, 50 degree. 9 times out of 10, if you try to go for it in two, it's an unreasonably long eagle putt anyways. So better to set yourself up for success than that duck hook left that goes into the water. There's just fewer times than not where our optimistic side of what we think we can do exceeds what our actual capabilities are or what the reasonable play is. Um, I watch, pros on tour where sometimes you're like in your head, you're like, come on, do it, go for it, and they do the conservative thing because they have such a high level of trust in their ability for that next shot.
Yeah.
And then again, just thinking through like what are the areas on this golf course where I can score. And in order to make those potential scoring, you've got to make the right choices in other places to be conservative and ensure that, things get accomplished and you don't end up with those double bogeys like I did last week. That the first double bogey I had was on, the second hole and I should never be hitting driver there. And I did, and I blasted it into the woods on the right because I hit it straight and didn't hit my perfect draw that I needed to be in play and just set myself up for a terrible front nine where if I would have just teed off with a 3 iron, I would have had a 6 or 7 iron into the green. No big deal. So,
Yeah. And that's the, so obviously I'm not hitting at 330. I mean, if
right.
I get lucky, I actually hit one 340 something. But I'm in Texas.
Wow. That's a good one.
I'm in Texas with dry fairways. So if you hit at the right angle, it's going to run forever. But for the most part, I'm like this 5'9" dude, weigh 160 maybe, soaking wet. Um,
Hmm.
I can get it out there, and that's the the mental hurdle I have is when I play with someone like you and you're bombing it like that, and I'm not the longest guy. It drives me
Right.
absolutely crazy that I'm being out driven, right? I'm used to being like hanging with someone that's like low single digits, but it's that whole shift in I don't have to hit a driver. And when I like go through the course the night before and I'm like, okay, this is my 3 wood. And everybody else pulls their driver out. And I'm like, I mean, I could hit my driver, and it's like that moment,
Sucks you in.
right? That moment where it's like you had mentally already prepared. I'm gonna hit a 3 wood here. my 3 wood draws, and I'm gonna get, 370 out of it, maybe 380, uh,
Mm-hmm.
270. The, I don't know where that three number came from. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like sticking to your game plan and not it, I there's a lot of Scott Fawcett's ideas that I like, but
Mm-hmm.
driving it versus a 3 wood versus a hybrid, I don't have enough trust in my short game. Like I want to hit a full shot, right?
Yeah.
When I do a 75% shot with a wedge, I don't have the confidence of, getting it close and then I'll fan it or I'll smother it, and so it's that confidence thing. And anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No,
Continue.
no, no, you're good. Um, thinking about I'm trying to think where I want to go next. So it's almost like in poker, there's times to be aggressive and there's times, not to be aggressive. So thinking about that driver versus 3 wood, I'd submit this idea, a change of strategy, if you will, to make you happy to hit that 3 wood when others are hitting the driver. So I play a lot with a guy who's 62, who is a scratch golfer, and a lot of times he'll beat me.
Wow.
He hits the ball 240 max off the tee. And
Yeah.
so all the time he's way behind me hitting in. But when you look at the scorecard at the end of the day, we're almost always neck for neck, or sometimes he beats me. So it's like, how is that? You know what I mean? He's not hitting the ball that far. So the idea I would submit is this: if you're in a tournament setting, what feels better? To be the first guy on the green sticking it to 10 feet, or to watch the guy stick it to 10 feet and know you got to follow that up?
Right.
So if you're the 3 wood off the tee, you're probably going to be the first one to hit. So it actually gives you an opportunity to put the pressure on them. So that's something that changed in my mindset where I was so used to being the last guy to hit into the green, and I'm two things that contribute to the anxiety there. One, you're sitting there going, I crushed this drive and I've only got 76 yards in. I should be really close to the pin. So now your expectations for yourself are high. And then two, the guy behind you that hit it 260 off the tee sticks it to 14 feet. And now you're like, I need to be at least that close because if he can hit it from there to there, then I should be at least that close because I'm only 76 yards in. So now I got two anxious thoughts running through my mind, which all could have been absolved by just simply hitting a 3 wood off the tee. And
Yeah.
so that would be like the sort of counterintuitive thought process I would, give you as an idea for like the next time you're in that tournament setting and you feel the urge to hit the 3 wood, go or hit the driver instead of 3 wood, go, you know what? I want to hit the 3 wood because I want the opportunity to put the pressure on them.
Yeah. That the part of the story I left out, with that driver that I hit 340, I had 101 in, and my 110 club is my 54. So I'm like, I'm just gonna hit a nice, easy 54. And I hit it 54 yards. I
Oh man.
just duffed the snot out of it. And I'm like, it's embarrassing to hit a great drive, center of the fairway, 342, I think is what it was. And then just duff. Just like, and it most of that was running. So I think I hit it about 20 yards in the air, and then it runs
Ugh.
another. And I'm just like, you're just like,
You're like, what the heck?
yeah, that's why I'm an eight. Um,
Yeah. So there's another situation like that where the long drive actually hurts. So we have a hole on my home course. It's like 332, but the green is on a little bit of a rise, a little bit of a mound. And a lot of times that pin is, front or middle. But the challenge with that is that there's no way to run the ball up there. And so when you smash that 310-yard drive and you've got 30 or 40 yards out, it's really hard to get a 40-yard shot high enough in the air to land soft on a turtleback green and stay on the green. And it's like one of those things where it's just if you're really not present in the moment when you're standing on that tee box, it feels so good to just smash that drive down the middle and then be like, yeah, of course I can come up with a magical little flopped 58, up onto that green. But like you said, 9 times out of 10, I have stepped up to that shot and either chunked it, bladed it, or you name it, not had a good result versus if I've got that 110, 100-yard shot out where I can just smooth a 54 or smooth a 58 but a full shot, I'm coming in nice and high, I'm landing soft, and I've got a much better potential to score. And that drive was just completely irrelevant. even though
Right.
it felt good to hit it far. So I go back and I look at golf courses, and it's like there are actually, when you've got the long drive capability, you analyze a golf course, 18 holes, there's really very few holes where you even need that unless you're playing the tournament tees in a big tournament where it's like a 7,400 yard course. Nine times out of 10, you just don't need that much length.
Yeah. And that's that. So the one of the challenges, and it's not a challenge. I mean, I've been trying to get my son to play more golf. And so we play the white tees.
Hmm.
So, I have in my bag, I mean, I average around 289 on the golf course.
Hmm.
I actually have Roundabout, which used to be the V1 game. Uh,
Hmm.
so it tracks my driving averages and distances and all that. And with driver, I can average 289.
Got it.
When you're playing a 6,700 yard, and so I'm playing it from the back tees is much different. So when I'm by myself, it's a totally different course because there's a hole that you go over water. Well, I can cut and go straight at the green with my drive and end up in the neck of
Hmm.
dogleg right. But when I'm playing it from the back tees, it is just get it over the water, right?
Right.
And so it's a different golf course. But the reason I say that is when I'm playing that far forward, I'm not hitting a lot of drivers. And that's why I kind of don't like playing so far forward because my driving strokes gain, I think, is a like a point eight compared to scratch.
Hmm.
Um, and that a lot of it is I'm not taking my driver out of my bag. Which
Right.
I hate because I want to spend more time because it's those drives where you need to just pump it out 289, 290 and be accurate. But when you're not hitting your driver a lot, it doesn't give you the chance to really work on that accuracy.
Right. Right. And to be, really like laser focused for a second on, so putting the driver away, that's just a simple decision, right? And you either make that decision or you don't make that decision. Then like asking the question, like what closes the gap from like where you are as a seven down to a one or a scratch? It's my belief based on everything you're telling me and all of the equipment, the workout. Like a lot of people struggle with the physical side where it's like, okay, maybe I hit a point of fatigue around the 12th or 13th hole. You're in great shape, so that's not an issue. You've obviously gotten a great swing built and you're analyzing it and you can see it. I think everything that boils down to what do you do next? It's going to be the stuff that you do with Paul, removing analysis paralysis and getting to really confident gut decisions that are the right decisions that then free you up to execute. And I would leave you with this thought. It's like you're better than you think you are. It's like you're everything, all the capability is there. You just need to like smash that like gate down that's in the way of executing shots with full confidence and full freedom. And you'll see a lot of guys, they hit, shots where like you watch closely in slow motion, they get through the impact zone and then like almost like pull back, so to speak. Like they don't let everything just get on through. And that apprehension a lot of times creates weird things at impact versus if you really get all the way through and just release and just turn those hips and just turn the body and there's no thought involved. It's just backwards and forwards. VJ Singh is one of my favorite golf swings to look at. It's like a metronome. It's just so fluid. There's nothing to it. So I think that's the thing that this year in 25 is going to take you to scratch is like you've got all the tools corrected, you've got all the right thought process correct, you've got the swing built, you've got power when you need it. Now it's just a matter of like getting rid of the analysis paralysis and getting to really confident gut decisions that then open up the opportunity for your body and to just execute.
I like your positivity. So if you could FaceTime me every time I go out to play golf and
And
just
tell you
talk
that.
through everything, that would be great. So if you need to start charging me an hourly rate, we may need to look at that.
Have
Um,
you, I'm curious, have you ever, so I don't think you should penalize yourself for the analytical side because that's obviously your profession and what you're good at. So just like what Paul helped me with, kind of preemptive executive planning, if you will, to eliminate that anxiousness. And in your case, like my anxiety would be the same as your analysis paralysis. Um, Sit down and look at a course ahead of time and give yourself permission to analyze the living piss out of it ahead of time, and then to go onto that card in advance and prescribe what you're going to do on every hole, so that the only analyzing you have to do is the variables when the plan doesn't go to uh, according to plan. So it's like if I picture a round of 18 holes where you're having to analyze every shot, what if you only had to analyze 5 shots because we just didn't do what was already prescribed? Then it's like the mental freedom to go out and just go play. It's like I don't have to worry because I know what I'm going to do on the next hole because it was already analyzed and prescribed.
I really like that. Because so like before I go play every round, it's okay, I'm gonna hit driver off this tee box. Then I go to the next hole, right? Now
Hmm.
I'm gonna hit driver, and based on my past performance, the app actually tracks where I usually will end up. So
Hmm.
from there, what is that next shot?
Yeah.
That is the analysis that I haven't done, and I'm interested to try that. Uh,
Yeah.
Especially, one of the other things I haven't done analysis wise, I did it for this last tournament, but is to look at where do I want to land on that specific green? Like what angle do I want, versus playing it from the center of a fairway. Well, I want to be on the right center
Hmm.
because the angle end of the flag, depending upon where it's at, is going
Is
to
better from the left side of that fairway.
right. Or,
Yeah.
I want to hit it over into the rough on the right side because that's going to give me a little bit of a flyer and it'll release, but it
Hmm.
actually gives me the way the green is, it's sloped. And so I have the full green to work with.
Yep.
That's I think you're onto something there, Luke. I like it.
You could even go so far as to call the golf course that you're going to play the day before and say, what are your pin positions going to be tomorrow? And then you could sit down and do your analysis against that. So you know so much as so far to where the pin's going to be that next day. So you're like, okay, whatever, hole number 6, par 4, 380. I know that the pin's going to be in the back, but I know that the back of that green is a steep slope. So, okay, I'm going to play my yardage from the middle of that green where I want to land. And in order to be whatever your favorite distance to hit into a green is, mine is a full 9 iron. So I like being about 145, 150. So it's like, okay, what club gets me 145 to 150 yards out? You know what? It's a 6 iron. What? Like sometimes I've literally teed off with a 6 iron or even a 7 iron just out of respect for the next shot. My best chance is to be a full 9 iron out. And you could just sit down and like almost gamify the whole round of golf in advance, have it all prescribed out, and then all I got to do tomorrow morning is wake up, have a coffee, have a great shit, and then head off and go execute the plan.
So I think like you saying I want to go play with you because I think I could get you to shoot your lowest. I think, when you talk about someone's 15 to 18, somewhere in that range, you're like, it's a par five, tee off with a 7 iron,
Hmm.
hit at 140, and another 7 iron. Like, it's like, first off, what is your favorite club? And it's
Yeah,
usually a 7 iron because when you think about it, every practice, when you go try out new clubs, it's a 7 iron, right?
7 iron. Yep.
So people just get really comfortable with a 7 iron. And it's like 3 7 irons, and if you're playing from the right tees and you're not playing in the blues,
Yeah,
that's not smart at that,
get
stay,
you there.
three, three, one, 140s is 312. So what is that?
420.
420. Thank you.
Yeah,
You got a 40-yard shot in, right? So three
right.
7 irons and a wedge, and you're on the
Yep.
ground. Most are not gonna hit the green with a two putt for a bogey at
Right.
that level, right? And
Right.
it's that mental mindset of, oh, well, it's a par five, so that means I hit my driver. And it's like,
Yep.
no, it doesn't.
Yep.
And I think it's now, I've had that shift happen, but now it's getting into the shift you're talking about. And based on where I'm at now, like really looking at the entire hole and be
Hmm.
more analytical of this is exactly how I'm going to play it. And not
Yeah.
just because a lot of times I'm just like, I just want to know what I want to hit off the tee, and then I will wing it from there because I'm good at winging it. However, winging it means, okay, so I can hit a low, easy 6 iron with a little bit of a fade, or I could step on a 7 iron, aim at the right, know I'm going to draw it. And so you get in, that's the analysis process. That's the superpower.
Yep.
Kills me because I'm like, I'm still going through all these options and I'm standing over it with a 6 iron thinking I'm going to have a nice, easy fade. And then you're like, but what if I
Yeah.
did?
But what if a 7 iron was better, you know?
I'm
And
like
then
literally over the ball, looking at the ball, still doing the analysis of, so, well, should I go ahead and hit, and it's like,
yeah.
it's too late. You got to
Yeah.
get and pull the trigger. And so I think that I'm going to start calling this, I'm going to go back, I'm going to take notes, and it's going to be the Gospel of Luke. Uh, and
That's That's funny. So it's interesting. I want to unpack something you said. So you're like, okay, everybody prefers a 7 iron because they're comfortable with it, or that's the club they hit. I, there's no difference in your swing with a 7 iron than a 9 iron or a 5 iron. The only difference is how you swing it because you're thinking about that club differently. So I say that to say like whatever club you're most comfortable with, the only reason you're comfortable hitting that club or the reason the results are good is because you're mentally comfortable with it. And so your body is released to go do the thing that you know to do. When you've become a 7 handicap, there's not really a lot that can be improved in your swing. Like your swing's really good to be a 7 handicap. So like what I experienced and how I went from where I was as an 8.6 to a 1.2 was there was no additional skill needed. There was no additional adjustment to the swing needed. Like, sure, there's always going to be little things you could improve to like higher ball flight or lower spin. Like, sure. But why I'm not scoring was because of decision making that I was not doing correctly. And so I think that you're going to be able to transform some future scores just by taking the time to get the analysis out of the way up front and set yourself free to just let your body do what it already knows how to do.
excellent. So this is going to be labeled the Gospel of Luke.
All
Uh,
right.
so a player interview. This is great. No, this is good stuff. And gosh, how far we've talked now for an hour. Um, thanks to the Zoom timing out. Obviously, I'm not going to make my entire group of people watch this for an hour. And here's the problem. I don't even know how to trim it down. Um,
Yeah. I mean,
it's
it's,
great conversation, and it's having conversations like this. And that's why I like about this new series of interviews that I'm going to be talking to people that have either done what I
mhm.
have done, or it's people that are chasing the tour. Like I've got a friend that I played in he was a pro, and we played a head-to-head match, and he when it stopped being a golf pro, went into the finance world, I think. And all of a
Mhm.
sudden I see him, he's chasing the dream again. He had played on the Americas tour, but it's like, well, what is that like? What is it really like to play at that level? Right?
Yeah.
Because the difference between somebody that plays the Americas tour and the PGA tour is so small. And
Right.
our conversation we're having right now, the difference between where I'm at 7.3 and where you're at a 1 point what?
1.2.
1.2. The difference is this much. But
Yeah. It's tiny.
that much, right? That much is a difference killer, and why I'm getting a doubles and triples and making the stupid decisions because
Right.
anyway,
And
anyway,
then it's like you make those couple of stupid decisions. And if you don't have that grounding thought of where to go, then it all unfurls from there, and the whole round is wrecked. Like I'm going back to this round that I was telling you about from last week. I was playing like an 8 or a 9 on the like my handicap play was like an 8 or a 9 on the front nine. I double bogeyed the second, double bogeyed the fourth, bogeyed the sixth, and bogeyed the ninth. 6 over on the front nine alone. Then to be able to just go, I know where to go mentally, and to turn around and shoot one under on the back. It was the difference of not knowing versus knowing. It's just like, finances or fitness or health. It's like the other side of results is just learning something you didn't know before, putting it in your tool belt, and then having that to go to when you hit those situations where previously you didn't know what to do. So just picture for a second your next round of golf, how much better and more confident you're going to feel when you've called the course, gotten the pin positions, looked through each hole, considered and marked what you want to do on each hole, what you want to tee off with, what your desired distance is, what your landing area on the green is, and think about how laser focused and confident you're going to be on every hole. Like the prescription's there. Now all I got to do is just go fill in the blanks.
Right.
I think it's going to be cool. I want to do a follow up to find out how that next round of golf goes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's
Cool.
awesome. Luke, thanks for giving your insight on what Paul has done. If by now I should have posted the Paul Salter interview where he kind of talks through everything. So be sure to check this out. Uh,
Hmm.
if in audience, check that out.
Yeah.
And it's gonna be I always forget which direction it is, but there's gonna be a link to that. But this this conversation we're having with Luke, he went from an 8.2 down to 1.2, and the reason I want him on here is because of his testimony of what working with Paul has been and what
Hmm.
the big change. And I hope to be having this conversation with Luke at the end of this year where I'm talking, I am now 1.2.
Yeah.
Or scratch, who knows, right?
Yeah.
And we're gonna keep updated with Luke's journey. Are you doing any tournament stuff? Are you gonna get into that, or you just
No,
still?
I just play against a group of like 25 guys. We play against each other every Sunday, and I just love to go out there and compete and throw a little money on it and have some fun. And so for me, it's just a matter of I want to just do the best that I can do. And that's an interesting point too. You've got the goal to be on the tour. One of the things that I think has helped me through Paul is freeing myself up from what the results need to be and just focusing on doing what I can do, what I can control in the present of every single shot. And then it's like you do that, you execute on that, and the results just come.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a great way to, as Paul would say, wrap a bow around it. Uh,
Yeah.
and to be frank,
Yeah,
frank.
absolutely.
No, Paul, I'm just kidding. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. Uh, but this is an example of some of the things that can hold you back. If you're chasing a dream, if you're wanting to get better, and who isn't, right?
Hmm.
You should consider working with Paul. Luke is a great example of why you should work with him, and he's had amazing results. I hope to have this same conversation this time next year, and that you reach out to Paul. His
Yeah.
information is linked below. It only makes sense, and just talk to him, have a conversation with him. It's an easy conversation to have. Having that conversation, working with Paul will help you keep it findable. And
Hmm.
that's what the game of golf is. When you get down this low, that's what the game of golf is.
Yeah.
Um, so guys, keep it findable. Thank you, Luke, for coming on and talking for so long. I appreciate you, your time, your journey, and we will be checking in.
Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks for having me on. It was a pleasure.